So who appreciates who spends so much time looking and trying to respond and sort things out so you get a fair deal? So you get a secure capital, but you take the risk of letting people qualify for higher levels of access, even if they have to be escorted at certain levels and in certain places. So you, President Trump, back in January or February or March, offered to meet with you, Kim Jong-un, and a little bit later with you, Philippine President. I'm sorry, I can't remember your name right now. But I have contacted you a couple of times. The target off of Guam out to Seaside would be about a place where maybe who could meet out at sea in a neutral area and have a discussion. President and Mrs. Trump are pretty brave people. They're willing to take a reasonable risk. So it's a matter of trying to balance it so that somebody doesn't clandestinely be a loose cannon and on their own volition try to mess up the safety that the official organization would like to guarantee for that kind of meeting. You look at the problems we've had with the Secret Service in South America having to come home, or another time in Europe with Barack Obama because of unauthorized drinking and prostitution. And they're the highest level of personal bodyguards for our own chief executive. So how much can who promise? Access. So that's about as far as I got in doing my research and trying to respond to you, Nikki Haley, from this morning, bringing up the issue of responding to you, North Korea, regarding the shaking of the spears. Jolly Roger, access to walk-in bar requires merit-based testing to give. What was that one? He's a jolly good fellow came to mind. Yeah, at the very end, defense is the legitimate right of a sovereign state for self-defense and a very just step no one can slander, which has a similar cadence to a very just, and he's a jolly good fellow, no one can. Those are the three exact words that match. No one can deny instead of slander. Cross-reference, who's highly intelligent comment about the street crowd when who walked by and said, here's some gentle honking. Yeah, I'm trying to be gentle to the street crowd, but who has to realize they may have been operant conditioned by the extreme sensitivity of the social network of the internet, being really used to getting code in tweets or posts or messages that acknowledge them so they know who respects them and acknowledges them, so that out in the street, if you're not accustomed to looking the right way or saying the right thing or pausing for the right moment, who can take that as a sign of disrespect or rejection, that you don't care about them, when actually all you're trying to do is navigate your own world not even having said a 2-unit voluntary departure prayer to leave your house because you have to get your dog out to walk and you've been working all day and you're exhausted. And it's not because you don't like the other person, it's because you're just trying to get your own life together. And so, who walked by said something about this. I don't know about this whole street parade, or I don't know about this whole slight. It's a slight charade. Slight meaning like little, modest, slight, as opposed to major, slight. And it's also like sleight of hand, but it's like slight of a negative thing. You slight somebody negatively. It's kind of the opposite of shunning. When you shun a friend, you ignore them and pretend you don't know them. When you slight somebody, you sort of acknowledge them in a negative way. So, slight charade is a pun. It could be like slightly a charade, and people dealing around the art of being offended, but it could be a sadistic way to teach the other person, hey, that's right where you went wrong. You don't want to do that move. It alienates people. So it could be educational. In that sense, instead of waiting around and letting a person make multiple mistakes, you identify the first significant one they make so they can restart from there. So how does that protect California or Alaska or Hawaii or UN members in general? And I think what you need are treaties with people who live behind who you're worried about. So when any missiles are launched at you, the missiles to intercept them can be smaller and faster and come up from behind, because it's a lot easier to go parallel and piggyback and jump on something or explode and cover it than it is to go from any other angle to try to hit it. So we got great sunlight and shadow pictures from around the world. World leaders having the shadow on their hand or the shadow of the day be such that you knew, hey, good idea. And then somebody's home team won. I don't know if it has to do with water balloons or what. And maybe it has to do with satellite orbitals too, and being able to bump into something without hurting it. Or if you consciously decide, then you can have the balloon burst. But even a soft bump up there can really throw things out of kilter. So we're pretty negligent, you know. It's like, look at this room here. I haven't had a chance to clean. There's so much needing to be tended to on the screen, plus the Adderall high test fuel really takes away your will to multitask. All you want to do is what you're doing and do it well. And it helps in that regard. That's why they call it an attention deficit disorder remedy. So it's working very well for what it's supposed to do. But on the other hand, I'm one person alone, me and Mecca Medina, Liberty Hale Omar. So unlike maybe other users who can delegate and have teamwork taking care of that stuff, I don't. You would think I make an offer to the Benjamin Franklin Trump Hotel. Put me up. I'll give you half of what I make until I pay you back, up to with some kind of interest for the delay as to how long it takes me to do that. But at $600 a night, man, that's like $6,000 a week times 4, $24,000 a month for your housing. That means $100,000 a month income is what you need for that kind of budget. And that's $1,200,000 a year income. and you wonder why CEOs get such high pay. That way you can spend all your time on the phone. Anything else that needs to be done, you can have the butler, the maid, the gopher, the taxi, the Uber driver go do it. And you can not have your learning curve fizzle. And then who misunderstand and things escalate, and by the time you get back, who's gone to war instead of staying at peace. So you ignore the room, and it gets messier and messier because you don't want a war, you want peace. And then likewise, you guys out there have the stuff that you're ignoring, and that's what's bothering the people, as that escalates. So that's where my other remedies come in. With the border corridor initial public offering of 120,000 square miles of land, ready for lease. So the United Nations knows about sovereignty, if anybody does, and the ability of sovereign nations to have sovereign portfolios and investments in stock markets. The same way sovereign countries could have sovereign leases under certain terms and conditions, as long as the lease doesn't let people illegally cross the border. Then you could have your own country and lease it for a certain period of time with option to renew, so that undersized countries like Israel and Kuwait and Rhode Island, they could get some more land and be more resilient, larger, more redundant, maybe less pressure over use of the land spread out, and that would help peace. So Qatar was also on the list. So if you think like a chief or like a sovereign, those are the kinds of ideas you come up with. Or if you think like a regular party member or politician, you think of the reality TV and the ratings and how you can keep people's attention and what sort of things they understand as simple scandals. And then you try to use that attention and embed your other messages. If you looked at the messages that Donald J. Trump have been embedding to whom, and compared it with other messages who's been embedding to whom, like how to fudge on your oil inventory, then it would be kind of clear that this is sort of the CIA motto of by any means necessary. And it's not just you, Kim Jong-un, who's raising their hand and waving it to give the right answer in class, as if Dennis the Menace himself wanted to have the world work to his to be sure, as to be assured of what's really going on, as Dennis the Menace likes to be. He doesn't like to be fooled. I mean, he's always asking why, who does what, and what if who did what, and it's kind of seen into people's characters. So we shouldn't let a thick veneer fool us. And the conclusion here is maybe a null hypothesis. It's pretty easy to reject that all Jong-un wants is to inflate his own ego and tell his people